Welcome to World Tide News, where we navigate the powerful currents shaping our world. Today we focus on Ethiopia's enduring quest for Red Sea access and the disputed port city of Assab.
130 million people, with the number still growing. It has been calling for access to the outlets in a peaceful manner, and Ethiopia's recent discussions around gaining sea access have attracted considerable regional interest, as you know, Ambassador. From a diplomatic and developmental point of view, how can Ethiopia advance in its aspirations for maritime access through constructive dialogues as well as mutually beneficial partnership with its coastal neighbors continue? And what are your overall observations in this regard, especially as a diplomat?
So issue number one, Ethiopia, we know, is the world's largest landlocked country. Issue number two, for a country of 140 million people that is trying to industrialize and depends on exports, access to the sea is absolutely essential. It's almost an existential issue. So Ethiopia needs to have access to the sea. There are several potential avenues because, as we know, there are a number of possible ports that Ethiopia can use. Right now, it is more or less dependent on the port of Djibouti, which is not a healthy situation for a country. We also know that there was at one point some interest in using Somaliland, which I personally think is a very useful avenue. Of course, there are the Eritrean ports. Unfortunately, a lot of analysts have said, oh my gosh, Ethiopia wanting to pursue using Eritrea ports means that there's a possibility of reigniting conflict in the Horn of Africa, which I know everybody understands that it is in nobody's interest to have a renewed conflict in the Horn of Africa.
A pivotal issue testing the limits of dialogue, international law, and regional stability. Tensions in the Horn of Africa are reaching a boiling point as Ethiopia escalates its campaign for access to the Red Sea. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed insists Ethiopia's claim is irreversible, demanding international mediation with Eritrea.
Ethiopia has reiterated its rightful claim and interest to access to the sea. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said Ethiopia's quest for access to the sea is a legal, historical, geographical, and economic issue. Responding to questions raised at the fifth-year regular session of the House of People's Representatives today, he highlighted Ethiopia's loss of access to the sea was a result of distorted narratives and took over 30 years to materialize. The manner in which Ethiopia had lost its access to the sea was illegal and unjust, he added, emphasizing that the country will not wait another 3 decades to reclaim this vital access. The country lost its access without the decision of the Ethiopian people, cabinet decision or parliamentary approved, he noted. However, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed reiterated his country's commitment to resolving the issue through negotiation and peaceful means. The Prime Minister further explained that Ethiopia's growth and development would also benefit neighboring countries, underscoring the urgency of regaining access to the sea. In closing, Prime Minister Abiy reaffirmed Ethiopia's determination to pursue its rightful access to the sea through legal and peaceful avenues, stressing the importance of collaboration with the brotherly Eritrean people.
Yet behind the rhetoric of peaceful resolution lies a troubling reality. Ethiopia's government and state-affiliated media routinely question the legitimacy of Eritrea's 1993 independence referendum, the very foundation of Eritrean sovereignty. Meanwhile, Ethiopian military officers openly assert the nation's historic right to the sea, while state broadcasts showcase the country's drone arsenal and military superiority, sending an unmistakable signal to Asmara. These demonstrations are not merely domestic posturing. They serve as pointed reminders to Eritrea and the wider region that Ethiopia is prepared to enforce its demands through force if negotiations fail.
የባህር በር የምንጠይቀው ቀጥዬ በመገልጻቸው አራት በጣም ጀስቲፋያብል በሆኑ ጉዳዮች ምክንያት ነው። የመጀመሪያው ከዚህ ባህር ጋራ የታሪክ ትስስር አለን ስንል ይሄ ባህር እኛ ጋር ነበረ። ይሄ ባህር አሰብ ነው የነበረው። አሰብ ደግሞ እንደምታውቁት ራስ ገዝ ነው የነበረውና ብዙ ነገሮችን ማንሳት ይቻላል። ወደ ሚዲያ ባናመጣውም እነኚህን ነገሮች በጓዳ በደንብ ማውራት ጀምረናል ከነሱ ጋራና ታሪክ ያያይዘናል ነው። ሁለተኛው ነገር ታሪክ ማያያዙ ብቻ ሳይሆን ዓለም አቀፍ ሕግ እኛን ይደግፈናል ማለት ዲስታንስ ፋክተር የሚሉት ነገር አላቸውና ከዛ የዓለም አቀፍ ሕግ ከሚያስቀምጠው የዲስታንስ ኤክስፔክቴሽን በታች ነው ኢትዮጵያ ያለችው እና በዚህ ምክንያት ይመለከተናል ብለን እያነሳንላቸው ነው የምንገኘው። ሶስተኛው ደግሞ ይሄንን ባህር የምንፈልግበት አክሰስ የምንፈልግበት ጉዳይ ሰርቫይቫል ኢንትረስታችን ሆኗል። አሁን ባለበት ሁኔታ ኢት ቢኬም አወር ሰርቫይቫል ኢንትረስት ዝም ብሎ እንደው ለፕራይድ ሳይሆን እንደው ባህር በር ማግኘት አለብን ብለን ከመናፈቅ ሳይሆን አሁን የህልውና ጉዳይ ሆኗል። ይሄ ደግሞ በመሪዎቻችንም አፍ በጎላ መልኩ ሲነገር እና ሲነሳ የነበረ ጉዳይ ስለሆነ ሰርቫይቫል ነው። ስለዚህ ሰርቫይቫል ደግሞ ማንኛውንም አይነት ዋጋ የምትከፍልለት አይነት ብሔራዊ ፍላጎት ነውና አሁን እኛ ይሄን ነገር ማሳካት የምንፈልገው በዲፕሎማሲው አፕሮች ነው። ጉዳዩ ግን እነኚህን ሶስቱን ታሳቢ ያደርገናል ብለን አንስተናል። ሌላው ደግሞ ትሬቶች ይኖራሉ። ትሬቶቻችንን በቅርበት ለመቀልበስ ይሄ የባህር በር ያስፈልገናል የሚልም እናነሳለን። ትሬት ሲባል ከውሃ ላይ የሚተኮስ የሚወነጨፍ ረጃጅም ርቀት መሄድ የሚችሉ ከተሞቻችንም ራሱ ሊያሰጉ የሚችሉ ዋና ከተማችን እንዲህ አይነት ጉዳዮች ስላሉና ከዚህ ጋር የተያዘ ኢንሴኩሪቲ ጉዳይ ስለሚያመጣ እዛ መሆናችን እዛ ሆነን ታክል ማድረጋችን በጣም አስፈላጊ ነው የሚል ነገር በደንብ እያነሳን እንገኛለን ማለት ነው። ሌላው ደግሞ ይሄ ባህር ወደ ሌላው አካል ሲሄድ እንደምታውቁት የሽግግር መንግስት ነው ይህን ባህር ሳልፎ የሰጠውና ሌጂቲመሲ አንጻር ካየነው ማንዴት የለው። የሽግግር መንግስት በህዝብ ያልተመረጠ መንግስት የባህር በር አሳልፎ የመስጠት ማንዴት የለውም። አሁን ወደ ሚዲያ ብዙ አላወጣ ነውም ግን ማንዴት የለውም።
These calculated moves suggest Ethiopia may be laying the groundwork for war, awaiting only a pretext to justify military action. The stakes could not be higher. A conflict in this volatile region, already reeling from decades of instability, would have catastrophic humanitarian and economic consequences, threatening one of the world's most vital shipping corridors. The flashpoint remains Assab, Eritrea's strategic port city and a linchpin of Ethiopia's economic ambitions. Addis Ababa frames its demand as a natural right, but Eritrea sees it as a brazen violation of sovereignty and the 2018 peace deal that ended decades of hostility. Despite Prime Minister Abiy's assurances that Ethiopia seeks a peaceful resolution, his ultimatum, one way or another, Ethiopia will have access to the sea, rings ominously alongside boasts of overwhelming military power. Mutual accusations, such as claims of Eritrean support for armed groups in Ethiopia, and Ethiopia's aggressive diplomatic moves, have fueled mistrust and instability. Prime Minister Abiy has called for mediation from global powers, the African Union, US, China, Russia, and EU. But the international community must go further. Ethiopia's relentless saber-rattling and revisionist rhetoric cannot be ignored. International law forbids territorial conquest, yet Addis Ababa's actions suggest a dangerous willingness to test those boundaries. The path forward must be one of restraint and diplomacy. The principle of international law and African Union norms bind both nations to respect existing borders. Ethiopia cannot strong-arm its way to the sea without triggering regional chaos. Instead of military posturing, it must pursue legal avenues, negotiating port access under regional treaties or the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. But time is running out. The international community must act decisively to pressure Ethiopia away from reckless brinkmanship. The Horn of Africa cannot afford another war. History has shown that force only begets suffering. Peace demands not threats, but dialogue, mutual recognition, and unwavering adherence to international law. The question remains, will Ethiopia choose confrontation or commit to a future built on cooperation? This is World Tide News. If you value staying informed about the forces shaping our world, please like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next report. Thank you for watching.